I'm going to start today's session by giving you the answers to last night's assignment. You can check your answers when you get a chance, and if you have questions in particular about any of them, feel free to bring them to our next session. We have now successfully added and subtracted real numbers, and today we're going to explore multiplication and division rules. There are two simple rules for us to follow, and they apply to both multiplying and dividing. The product or quotient of two numbers with the same sign will be positive, and the product or quotient of two numbers with different signs will be negative. Let's practice that rule. I look at my first problem, and I'm seeing that the signs are unlike. So that tells me that I'm going to have a negative answer, and I'll get a negative 84. Right now I'm only dealing with two factors. We'll talk about multiple factors in a moment. The product of two negative numbers will be positive. Same rules apply when we're finding a quotient. I have unlike signs, I'm going to get a negative quotient. Same signs, I'm going to get a positive quotient. Now let's look at multiple factors. This is the same as if I said, let's take -2 and multiply it by itself 3 times. When I have an odd number of negative factors, my product will be negative. So I don't have to go from problem to problem, multiplying as I go along. I can scan and see that there is an odd number of negative factors, so therefore my product will be negative. And then it goes to show that if I have an even number of negative factors, then my product will be positive. Odd number, negative, even number, positive. So again, when multiplying negative numbers, if there is an odd number of negative factors, then your product is negative. And when multiplying, if there's an even number of negative factors, then your product will be positive. Again, if you don't remember that rule, please jot it down now in your notes. It's a good reference to have. Let's put that to practice now. Let's look at our first problem. Before we get an answer, okay, before we get a product, please tell me if the product will be positive or negative. Well, I have 1, 2, 3 negative factors. 3 is an odd number, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And now I just can proceed. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 4 is 8, times 1 times 5. Second problem, let's look across. 1, 2. Only 2 negative factors, so I know it's going to be positive, and now I just multiply without being worried about the signs. 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, 16 times 3, 48, and it's positive. Third problem. Take a look at this one. I have 1, 2, 3 odd number negative factors. And the product of this one will be, we'll do that one in class. Let's look at the next ones. From this point forward, we'll do these in class. I want you to think about the signs, and I want you to think about where your decimals belong on these problems. So there's a couple more for you to try. And as I said, as we meet up in the session today, we'll go over those answers. Little more practice for you. Again, looking at these problems, think about what they mean and how you can go about simplifying. 8 problems, and again, if you get an opportunity to do this before our session today, please do so that you can discuss them. If not, I'll give you time during the session. We'll do again some more practice problems in class. And now let's get to some other important rules and definitions. Division involving zero. The quotient of zero and any non-zero real number is zero. I take any number and divide by any number, my quotient is zero. But when zero is in the denominator, which means that is the dividend divided by the divisor, when it's the divisor, the quotient of any real number and zero is undefined. We can never divide by zero because there's no number times zero that will ever give me another number. The next would be that inverse property of multiplication. For every non-zero real number a, there's a multiplicative inverse, 1a over a, such that a times its inverse is equal to 1. Any number times its multiplicative inverse equals 1. So that another way to put it is the product of any number and its reciprocal is 1. We look at reciprocals here, and if I were to put a multiplication symbol there and cross cancel, I would get 1 for each of these. So a number and its reciprocal, the product is 1. The rules of division simply tell us to multiply by the reciprocal. If I have a divided by b, AB divided by CD, another way of writing that as a complex fraction, it's written out. So if I have 2/3 divided by 6/7, I can easily rewrite that. And then I multiply by the reciprocal. This should be familiar to you. Now that I have this multiplication, I will cross cancel, and I will get 7/9. Again, more examples to follow. Just going through this kind of quickly. Homework will be some practice on page 42, numbers 8 to 37. And again, questions will be answered, more practice problems in today's session. I'll see you then.